I think that we have a lot of people on the first panel, and I want to make sure that I'm asking them to unmute and come forward so that we can actually have a wonderful way to start is by letting go of your stress. Now, I do that by eating flowers every morning and eating some, I have some mint here, which is also really a very good pick me up. So that's how I start my day. So I'm less stressful. So now we're going to learn from a lot of experts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Forward to Abundance Spring Summit. And I'm Mary Lummerding. I'm your moderator for this panel. The panel today for number 1 is stress management and emotional well-being. Is Alexi here? I don't see her. I think we have Marina, Margarita or Maggie, and Dorina. So welcome. We all know that we have to manage our stress, and there's different ways of doing it. So I'm very happy to have our experts here to discuss this important topic. I'll ask one question per person, and then we'll move on and see how much time we have that we can talk about this. First, I'll talk to Marina Shchegolikhina. She is a mindful expert who helps individuals reduce stress, boost productivity, and transform their lives through mindful meditation. Whether you're seeking support to work through challenging conversations, manage strong emotions, incorporate mindfulness into your daily life, she offers practical tools to thrive personally and professionally. So Marina, what are signs that mental health is being negatively impacted by a person's job?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mary, for introducing me. Such a wonderful introduction. Yes, this is a wonderful question because I really went through some challenges in my job, and I can give some example from my life. I work in finance, and some years ago, I was working and was responsible for international clients, and I really know what does it mean, how to cope with, how to manage stress. Not well, but anyway, on doing this path, and we are together at this conference also doing it, and not only stress management, but also connecting with nature. And my story, to tell this story short, I would like to say that I found myself overloaded with work and with quite big negative emotions, and I received a call from my boss. He said, "Marina, it's a good time to find a new job for you." I was so shocked at that moment, and I remember how much time I was spending doing my tasks and responsibilities, and it was quite a drastic experience. And I find out that I was close to burnout at that moment, and I was like thinking that it was a worst thing in my life. And but time passed, and I figured out that it's the best thing in my life, which happened to me when he said this phrase because I started searching for a way how can I be mentally strong and cope with difficulties, and how can I reshape my um, way of thinking in a way how can I be more supportive instead of showing like aggressive mood or anger, and or criticize him for his decision which he made. I looked into area of meditation and mindfulness. I started practicing this for a daily basis, almost like starting from 2 minutes, and I find out how big impact to my life mindfulness and meditation created for me. I started sleeping better. I absolutely reshaped a way of thinking, because just if you want or you don't want, when you meditate, you feel that your thoughts is coming and passing by like cars in a motorway. Just you are just exploring such different horizons of and possibilities in your life. And this is what I was experiencing. And I again started social interactions with my friends, and again coming back into the normal world. And after 6 months, my boss, he has been waiting for 6 months when I was in trying to find out a new job. And finally, I moved from one department into another. I think it's also because of meditation and all these practices. I started my communication with my colleagues in a different way. And one of my previous colleagues invited me to move to different department, and finally I discovered myself in again an interesting job where I can bring some benefits for clients and for colleagues in a team. And I think our mental health really depends on how much attention we are paying into not our physical health, but also how we are doing things, how we are communicating, and how we are impacting ourselves and the world around us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move to Dorina. In the fast-paced, high-stress world we live in, true family connections are often lost. Sorry. Dorina is a wife and mother of 6, and she's a staunch advocate of family meals and aims to change that. With over 30 years of experience in nurture holistic health within her family, she knows firsthand the power of the dining table as a vital connection point. Dorina, for your first question, your main mission is to revive the Rosito effect. What is that?
So, hello, everybody. I'm Dorina. And yes, the Rosito effect is, well, the definition is the phenomenon by which people live longer, healthier, happier lives by the way they live in community. And the quick story behind that is that in the 1880s, people from this village in Italy, where I am now, immigrated to the United States and landed in eastern Pennsylvania working in the slate mines. As they got there, they came up with some discrimination, as was at the time, and so they moved off to the side and they started a new town and they named it Roseto after the town in Italy. So they lived in this little enclave, just them, for many, many years. And fast forward to the 1960s, the doctor serving the town told another doctor, hey, nobody in this town has any heart disease and a lot of other ailments as well. And so they say, well, let's study this town. Why are they living so long and healthy? They immediately went to study the food, but they were eating salted cured meats, food fried in lard. They were smoking and drinking and happy and healthy. And they're like, okay, what is it? It's not that. So as they studied deeper and spent time in the village there in Pennsylvania, what they ultimately attributed their good health and longevity to was the community-centered, church-centered, family-centered life. it was basically about connections. I call it life around the table, not necessarily what's on it, even though we know that's really important, but who's around it, who's in front of you, who's sitting next to you, who you're conversing with, who you're connecting with. They called this the Roseto effect. So this is the phenomenon that I am trying to revive, because I feel like in our country, this is what is missing: connections. And I think the table in the family home is the bottom building block of society. And whenever you need to fix something, what do? You go back to basics. Just like every sports movie you've ever seen, when the coach comes into the ragtag team, what do? They're like, we got to get back to basics. Well, that's what we have to do. But back to basics for society is the family table. It's known fact that people who eat together are more connected. It teaches so many things, from children learning how to converse, knowing that they've got a support system. So all of these things put together are so critical to our physical health and our mental health and our emotional health. So this is my mission, to revive the Roseto effect. So if you want to join me, join my Back to the Table movement, because that's what it's all about. We have to get back to the table.
Thank you. We're going to talk after this.
Yes, we
All
are.
right. Next, I have Margarita Grueskin, who is a seasoned wellness expert and dynamic speaker specializing in the integration of mental fitness into the modern wellness programs. With over 2 decades of experience, Margarita merges her expertise in economics and development with a profound passion for holistic health. Um, in your lifestyle medicine coaching, you integrate both timeless wisdom and modern science to promote optimal health. Could you explain the principles of Ayurvedic and discuss how these ancient self-care practices can serve as effective strategies for managing stress in today's fast-paced world?
I would love to, Mary. Thank you so much. And it is such a pleasure to be here in this circle of seasoned healers and heart-centered leaders. And Dorina, I have to come to Pennsylvania. That just sounds like so exciting. I love that idea. And thank you for the question. It is near and dear to my heart, and an expression of my continued evolving knowledge and experience of what it means to be healthy. So when we're talking about, stress, the idea of stress and health and wellness and how do we connect back to nature, I go back to my initial inquiry and experience of being truly healthy. So I was a former executive consultant, Fortune 100, working for the big four accounting consulting firms. And then, as always, when we pivot, something happens in our life to cause us to pause. And in my instance, it was my husband being sent to Iraq for the war early in 2003. So in this space, this gap of transitioning, I discovered this beautiful book. And if you're like me, I love books. I live books. And I discovered Dr. Deepak Chopra, his book, Perfect Health. I've read it. You see all my notes and everything. I live and love the wisdom from this book, which of course he garners and shares information from what you shared about what is Ayurveda. So coming from this very Western view of what is health or the absence of disease, I dove in heart and mind to learn what is Ayurveda. And now it's my passion to kind of share this, to awaken this ancient wisdom for all of us, so that we feel more empowered, more connected to actually being the solution providers to our own health. And when we experience dis-ease, by really going back to nature. So if I may just take a minute to share the genesis of what is Ayurveda. So many people here in America, especially, there's over 35 million people, according to the American Journal of Yoga, that talks about how many people actually practice yoga. So about 35 million people practice yoga regularly. So they're very aware of sort of this idea of the mind-body connection and how amazing it feels to actually breathe and be embodied in the physicality of our breath and body and mind. And so Ayurveda, which is a word from the ancient healing language of Sanskrit, means the science of life or the wisdom of the life cycle. And it was created or discerned by ancient healing men who would be visiting the natural forests and caves and mountains and would discern the truths of what it is for us as human mind body beings to live in harmony with nature, the rhythms of the seasons, the elements of the earth and the water and the fire and the air and the space. And so in the intimate understanding and embodying this knowledge and connection of how we can either thrive or be at dis-ease with our surrounding elements in nature, there came to be this body of knowledge. So this knowledge was initially passed down. Can you imagine? Just like we're collecting here in these sacred circles, it was passed down just by telling stories and short sentences known as sutras that conveyed very powerful information and guidance on how we can feel better in the mind, how we can nourish our bodies with the healing herbs and fruits and everything from the forests, and what is good in our social connections around our stone tables at the time, right? And so the idea is, how can we get back to nature by putting ourselves back in the driver's seat? Or maybe now we're in the spaceships, right? So putting ourselves in the spaceship landing captain's seat, where we say we are in command of how we are going to decide what nourishes us the most. And so what I love the most about Ayurveda, and I think why it is so important, so this 5,000-year-old science of wisdom, of how we live, tells us a few very important things. Number one is it helps to answer one of the soul questions, which is, who am I? Beyond the labels of our jobs, whether we're male or female or the role in our family or community, but at an essential essence of our being, as an energetic vibration, as an expression of our full consciousness. And so understanding that, we use the qualities and characteristics in all of the 5 elements that I mentioned: the space, the air, the fire, the water, and earth. So if you can imagine 5,000 years ago, the understanding, so it's such a high level that the development of the Vedas, the spiritual scriptures, are still relevant today. So more importantly, they really help us by reconnecting us back to the body. So when we can know who we are as an elemental being, we know our characteristics, and we can then decide to determine what is good for me. So when we ask the second question, what do I want? So what do we want right now in life? Do we want a better job? Do we want to find that special person? Do we want to be healthier in our body? When we know what we want, how do we decide? So my friends, now that we are in the post-information era, we are now at a point where we are no longer able to fully digest life. Can you really connect with that? You can post a yes in the chat to just say, yes, I feel like I can't take it all in. The information that's coming from me, the way that it's being demanding. Thank you, Cindy, for posting that. Yes. Just think of, we're becoming these serial routers, quickly coming in and quickly going out without doing the deep work. So let's not become living from the neck up only. Let's re-envision the vibrant health and vitality that we can experience for ourselves by knowing who we are through the science and lens of Ayurveda, and then having the mental wherewithal to have the courage and the insight on what will nourish us the best. And so I have this little demo here, this little dude, which I've been using for years in part of my talks. So with Ayurveda, it helps us to understand that we are not just this body, that if we come back to understand the magic, the information and energy that we get from all of the 5 senses, which become gateways to our inner pharmacy, as Deepak started to share in his work, it's like, how are we living now? We have this big head and we're not really living with our bodies. So I am so excited because Ayurveda guides us to understand what is healthy, what is healing for me, and how can I be an active participant. Without this deep connection, my friends, this is what happens. Without our ability to really smell, we're not really paying attention to what we're smelling because we're bringing in all this fake fragrances, right? And we're kind of taking away the information and knowledge from that. And maybe we're not even really tasting very well because we eat so much processed food, so much salt and all this oils, bad oils, and we may not even be hearing. I'm going to leave one ear open because I want you to still listen. But most of us are so tuned out to so many things, right? And we don't really work from the heart. Most of our paths are shoulds. And so Ayurveda says, you know, when we're not connected to our heart, it's as if our hands are no longer, hold on a second, I need a little more effort here to remove the hands because they're really connected in there. So I'm going to take that away. And, you know, the last one to really show here is the eyes, because look at us. We use the eyes to really see, show us what's real in life. But what happens when we close our eyes and we go inward and we really connect back into that space? Our inner knowingness, we begin to expand into our true essence. And so by living fully plugged in, by reawakening all the senses, we come back to our fullness. And so Ayurveda is the right medicine for the right time in our distracted and numbed society, because we're just being bombarded by so much. So really, let me shorten it up because I know there's so many amazing more speakers here. But with Ayurveda, we look for symptoms of health. We create a language of wellness and we put you in the driver's seat because this is your individual curated journey. So I invite you to join me in my sessions to discover your soul blueprint and discover the power and courage of having this decision matrix for life. So Mary, thank you so much for the question, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm used to Toastmasters. I'm used to clapping for people when they stop talking. Alexi, welcome. And Alexi is our next expert, Alexi Bracey. Happiness matters. And Alexi is a happiness advocate, mentor, speaker, and primarily guiding youth to embrace self-confidence and self-worth for a positive, bright, and successful future. Alexi, how do you stay happy when everywhere you look, people are angry, complaining, and not smiling?
I totally agree with you. It's our environment, the way we were raised, and things that have happened in our life. So, for example, our happiness levels are determined 50% by genes, 40% by lifestyle, and 10% by habits. So, for example, 4-year-old little girl goes for a Sunday afternoon, drives for ice cream and cookies with her grandfather. He's sick one Sunday, so he asks Grandma to take the little girl. So off the two of them go and come back in a couple hours, and she goes running up to Grandpa's room, who's still sick in bed, and Grandpa says, "How was that?" And she says, "We didn't see any horses, asses, sons of bitches, or tree huggers. It was really boring. All Grandma did was wave and smile." So as cute as that is, it's not really, because already she's been taught to look for the negative things rather than the positive things. So not everybody was blessed to live or have a happy person in their life, whether it was a parent, whether it was a grandparent, or whatever. So we learned the negativity through our upbringing. And of course, our society is everything is negative. We're complaining, we're blaming, we're shaming. So what I like to do is like to start with me being happy first, and then that energy will resonate and I will feel a lot better with the people I talk to impact, especially our youth, because our youth has been impacted by our parents, by society, by school, by media. And, there's anxiety, depression, suicide rates are through the ceiling. So I suggest for everybody, and including teaching your family, first thing in the morning when you get up, give yourself a hug. Everybody likes hugs, but we don't give ourselves a hug, we give other people a hug. So when you stand up, wrap your arms around you, and for 1 minute, hold that positive intent and say, "I am" statements. I am happy. I am kind. I'm a good mother. I'm a great pet owner. I'm going to write that book. I'm going to be on that summit, because it really raises the frequency and your vibration. And if you teach your kids to do that, initially they'll probably think it's really corny, but I tell you, they will feel so much better. And so teach your family, your children, to do kind things for other people for no apparent reason. Hold the door open for somebody. Offer to buy a coffee for the person behind you or a homeless person. And give a compliment to the school guard crosser. We sort of forget these people, the school bus driver. When somebody offers you a compliment or does something nice for you, you feel so much better. And then be grateful for the things that you have. The fact that you have a school bus to go to school with, you've got food on the table, you've got water to drink, clean water, good food, a bed to sleep in. We forget all those things. And social media has such an impact on our youth and everybody across the board. Really streamline and watch what they watch, even though they may be 18 or 19, because the suicide rates among our youth, 18 to 20 plus, is where it is really very bad. And so really pay attention and try to do family things, even though it may sound corny, and maybe you've never done it before. Say to your family, I'd like to try this experiment for a week or 2 weeks and see how they really like to it. The happiness report for 2024 just came out, and it said, without a doubt, family dinners together make a big difference. Not you're sitting in the corner on texting and mom's doing something else and dad's doing something else. Families need community with connection with one another. I can't stress how important it is. And the same thing, gatherings with relatives, and invite people that don't have families, because it makes a really big difference. Invite somebody for lunch who has lost a loved one. Offer to do something kind for a neighbor. Teach your family to do these kind things to make other people feel better. For example, I use a lot of humor to make, because everybody likes a joke. I'm really big on jokes. It lowers cortisol, raises endorphins, the feel-good hormones, and laughter has been shown to promote longevity. And the guy will say to his wife, I met this crazy woman at the dog park. She shared a joke, but it was really good. And so the story continues. So having said that, a bunch of porcupines decide that they're going to all live together for the winter because it's really cold and they need the body heat. And so they all huddle together and they're sharing one another's warmth, and after a while they start getting on each other's nerves and their quills are bothering them, and they think, forget it, I can't handle this, I'm going to go on my own. So they all part company and they're all living on their own, and they all freeze to death. So the moral of the story is you need that community, that social bonding, whether it's neighbors, friends, family. You just have to learn how to put up with the pricks. So having said that, commit every day to do one kind thing for somebody else, and get your family to do the same thing, especially your youth. As much as corny as it'll sound, believe me, it will make a really big difference and impact and their outlook on their everyday activities.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Marina, we're back to you. How do you ride the ocean of emotions in your everyday life?
Wow, it's a big thing, especially I think I try to practice, and on a daily basis, I really try to find out what I'm feeling, how to manage my emotions, how to see them as an observer, and how to find out to be closer to sort of emotional regulation process, and how to be, because we all thought that as a healers, as a people who are close to understanding our emotions, that we need to process our emotions instead of pushing them down. And because just Margarita told us about Ayurvedic huge knowledge and science, which really shows us how putting emotions down or things which is important in our senses down, we are just see potato head. And sometimes we don't want to be like this, right? And the strategy which I try to use on a daily life, and I think it's useful for me because I'm totally sure that I can't control which emotions triggered within me. But what I can do, I can with practice control the trajectories of these emotions. And the goal is to consider the messages which, for example, fear, anger, and anxiety are sending to me before shifting into some constructive, good emotional state. And again, smiling face and everything is nice and dandy. And the strategy to manage this emotion can be, for example, what I'm doing in a daily life, apart from meditation and mindfulness techniques, it's I'm listening my favorite song and just singing up, and it helps a lot to shift my mind, to shift in some, for example, calming sounds, uh, very effective, and everyone knows that they are helping us lowering blood pressure. For example, hearing birds or hearing some nature itself, and helps us to reduce an anxiety state and some paranoia and sometimes sense of smell of something, which helps us to jump into our childhood and show some signs of very nice and tasty bread which we experience in our childhood, which my mom or grandma was prepared for us, right? And it's amazing what strategies we can develop for our daily, to improve our daily expertise in this area. And for example, if we jump into psychology, we can, as a coach, coaching is my hobby, and I love to have self-talks addressing to myself, and to be a second person for myself and coach myself through in different times of stress. And for example, I love to encourage myself, like sometimes coaches encourage us, saying like, just do it, just do it. And I'm saying to myself, just do it. It will help people, it will help you. And another tool which I experience and really enjoy it is journaling. Journaling with creating space for myself to explore and understand the triggers which sometimes trigger in me, and nuances which not allowing me to see them clearly without journaling. As a small things, I would like to just point them again: mindful meditation, journaling, music, exercises, mental distancing techniques, and expressive writing sometimes really help us to rescript our inner dialogue and to encourage ourselves to be effective, to create things which we are creating today, for example. And we are creating together these wonderful, healthy behavioral changes and life changes, maybe, or it may be helpful things which helps others to grow and change their behavior. Thank you, Marie, for your question.
Dorina, I heard that you have a story that you feel exemplifies the importance of family meals in your own life.
Yes, I do. So, I am all about nutrition. I'm going to leave that to the others. And I do really push my back to the table movement. I feel like it is just truly a critical, it's critical for shaping all of our relationships, our families, and in our household, my husband and I and our 6 kids always ate at the table. So about 15 years ago, now actually about 18 years ago, we had a family tragedy. It was unfortunately a suicide. We lost my sister-in-law. And it was one of those things that, can either make or break you. And it broke us. It broke us for a while, but then it made us back later. So what happened was we went through a terrible time. It was, guy depression, which is, closed off, and woman depression, which is ranting, raving, lunatic, crazy woman. And we separated. My husband and I separated for 3 years. And it was a defining moment in our lives because it was a crazy time. It was horrible. We have 6 kids. We were the family that everybody looked at and said, wow, I want to have family like that. But here we were broken. What happened was, though, as it started in the very beginning, we were very separated. But what happened was he started coming home for dinner every Sunday to be with the kids, to keep things somewhat normal while he and I tried to figure our stuff out. Every Sunday, he was home for dinner. It was a piece of normal in our otherwise chaotic life at the time. And it wasn't something that we just started doing so that we could try to, so I could try to pull him because, when we first met, the first 3 things he asked me, are you Italian? Can you cook? Will you marry me? So that was always like at the center of our life, So it wasn't something I started doing to try to get him home. No, it was something we did because we always did it. It was part of our rituals, our life, our traditions. And so for him coming home on Sundays, it was normal. It was regular. It was what we did. And so when I looked back on those times, I realized that that family dinner, that tradition that we had, was a lifeline for us. It was something that was that little fine thread that just held us on, that eventually pulled us back together. And I do attribute a real big part of that to that, because when you are sitting at the table and you're doing what you always do, if you start your life that way. So when I talk to young families and they're like, oh gosh, how do you do this? You have 6 kids. I only have 1, or I only have 2. And I'm like, listen, it's all the same. After 2, you chase the youngest and you yell at the rest. But anyway, I digress. So the thing is, though, it's that when you start this tradition, it becomes a normal and it becomes a comfort. We always celebrate with food. If someone has a baby, you take them food. If someone dies, you take them family food. If you're having a, graduation, you celebrate with food, a wedding with food. The number one thing you talk about is the food. But what is the food? The food is the tool that brings us to the table. And what do we do there at the table? We connect, we commune, we talk, we whine and complain. We show, we complain about things at work or school. We talk about the great thing that happened, and so that's one of the things that to me is so empowering. I have such a great time showing people how to do this. Unfortunately, we've fallen out of the habit. I know so many people who their kids eat in their bedrooms. They take their dish to their room. If you say that to somebody in Italy, and by the way, I'm not in Pennsylvania, I'm in Italy, just so you know, I'm actually in the original Roseto here. But if I tell somebody that here, they are, what? It's a terrible, terrible thing. They're like, oh my God, you're kidding me. It's a disrespect for the family. It's a disrespect for the food, because here there's so much respect for the food. So, when you have that kid sitting in front of you across the table, and it is what you always do, but he's feeling, look at, maybe little Johnny's looking a little glum today. And you're like, hey, what's the matter? Why are you looking down today? Oh, somebody was mean to me at school, or I failed a test. Well, guess what? You failed a test in math? Oh gosh, I suck at math too. Let's get you a tutor. I've just made him feel better because mom's not good at math either, number 1. And we're going to fix it. I'm getting a tutor. That kid that was giving you a hard time, let's invite him over after school tomorrow. We'll make some cookies or do something, because a lot of times that bully needs love too. And they have even probably a worse problem than the one being bullied to start with. So there's so many things in society that can come back to the table. And so when we do that, and when we can see that in front of us, but if that same kid is in their bedroom in front of a TV or a computer or their phone, looking or talking and scrolling and looking at other things that are miserable, and they're there by themselves, they're just going to go further and further down. I looked up some studies at one point, and I looked, and one of the ones I found was that the top 2 common denominators, and I'm going to go a little extreme, but the top 2 common denominators for school shooters was mental illness and broken families. Well, mental illness isn't always chemical. It's often situational, coming from that family dynamic. So what do we do? If we can fix that, imagine if we could stop big, horrible things like that just by the act of eating together. So it's a start. What I love doing is I teach people how to cook for the sake of getting them back to the back to the table. And it's about whether you're cooking together or you're serving it together. And there's a lot of tips and tricks that you can do if you're not in the habit or you never were in it. I know people who didn't even grow up this way, but I did. I feel fortunate, and that's why I feel really blessed to be able to share this with people, because I started teaching people how to cook since I was 19. So, and I'm here now to help you, do those same things, cook and converse with your kids. Because we have a family group chat on our cell phone with the 8 of us that spins all day, every day, because we are all over the world. I've got kids in California, Colorado, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, and we're in Italy. And you know what? We are so connected. People, I hate saying people are jealous, but they are. I know where all my kids are at every minute, and I've got a bunch of them. So start at the table and it goes from there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful. Yes. Maggie, where'd it go? Okay, so we just have 10 minutes left, and I want to touch on the question that was in the chat. So, Maggie, in the context of evolving health and wellness trends, how can individuals better adapt their routines to enhance emotional well-being?
Thank you for that question. And so enjoying all of these wonderful discussions. And I love the idea of all of us being around the table, sharing this wisdom, sparking the wisdom for each of us on our paths. And that is such an amazing question for us. And I really am honored to think about how can we pivot to wellness? So the idea is, first of all, to remember that we are limited in our ability to focus. We are now at the mercy of so many distractions. So how can we set reminders or set up rituals of health that automatically connect us with empowered ways to stay in tune with nature, to honor our unique mind-body constitution? So in my sessions, I always start not with the symptoms of illness or a sense of dis-ease, but who is this mind-body composition? Who is this person, this being, this essence? And by knowing who is showing up, and as we converse and we start to share, we can create sort of this pathway that is personalized based on both universal needs of the body, of the mind, of the universal stressors, and an understanding with compassion of what is the one step that we can take, focusing on the win, what's important now, avoiding the overwhelm and putting ourselves again in that driver's seat to say, what can I do so that I can feel that I am empowered, following this path in life that has heart and where I can make the most impact? So taking the science from the emerging fields of lifestyle medicine, which focuses on evidence-based guidance on what works to help us stay more dis-ease free and to make those healthier choices. And then knowing that we're all unique. I would love everyone to understand how unique and precious you are. And by really owning that, we become the authors of our own life. So getting our wellness journal, being inspired on what next actions we can take, whether it's food or sleeping or eating healthier, nutritious seasonal fruits and vegetables, or our social relationships. And then to be able to take action and to be supported, to feel that we are writing and experiencing this time together in this container of social connection and support. So I really encourage people to find out who are they as an essential energetic being, getting really curious of what are my tendencies? Who am I at my core? And how does that pivot me? How does that really set me up to thrive in a unique way? And in this way, we can then start looking for symptoms of health. In Ayurveda, we call these ojas. These are drops of nectar, of symptoms that we know that we are on the right path because we feel good. We exude our health and vibrancy. And we can also look out for the ama, the ways that we're not able to fully digest, whether it's our food or the thoughts in the head or our life in general. And so by finding more of this neutral, enlivened path, we reach more of a sattvic state, which is more in harmony with nature. So the mind is right now a filter that is being overwhelmed. And I encourage everyone to connect and let's explore the 5 sheaths that we can explore to unwrap ways that we may feel overwhelmed. We may feel stuck. We may feel doubtful or uncertain. And so with my soul blueprint, we go into that. We uncover the beautiful soul gems that are waiting for us to uncover. And in Ayurveda and yoga, it's about expression. If we can more fully express who we are in our skills, talents, unique energies, we come most fully alive. And that's my greatest wish for everyone, is to connect to that source of power that we can then ignite to then do our great work. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Marvelous. Alexi, our happiness advocate. What got you into the happy mode, and were you born that way?
I was sort of always on the happier side that I'm aware of, and especially when I go back on my past Facebook posts, from 5, 10 years ago. I was always happy back then. So I don't know how it really happened. Like I said before, part of it is genetics, but it is definitely a skill that you can develop when you start focusing on the good things you have in your life. I experienced several setbacks. I was diagnosed with cancer more than 20 years ago, and without medical intervention, drugs, or surgery, I was cured. I cured myself. It was my mindset, and I knew I was going to make a difference for myself. And then lo and behold, people started asking me, teach me what you did. And then when I saw how happy people were and the results and the pleasure I got, it sort of escalated my degree of happiness, I guess you could say. And then I had another unfortunate accident that ended my one career. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? But I had already at this point determined or learned that I had the gift to share jokes. And so because I like to make people happy. And so then Marcy Shimoff's program fell into my lap, Happy for No Reason. And I thought, a perfect fit for me. And so now I thrive on helping people see the happy side of life. And if there's anything negative in your life, there's always a lesson there. Like for me, the lesson with my cancer was it shifted the direction of my life. Christopher Reeves said that the happiest 3 months of his life were his last 3 months because of his research in spinal injury. He was able to help so many people. The lady, unfortunately, who lost her daughter to drunk driving, started mad. I mean, unfortunate accident, but she has helped and made other people happy by informing them, about the perils of drunk driving and how it can affect your family. So it's just something that I really thrive on doing now. I used to be a chef, so I used to make these little heart-shaped treats, gluten and dairy-free, and I'd hand them out to people, saying a little happiness in your tummy. I'd go to coffee shops and I'd see a couple or 3 or 4 people sitting there, and I'd say, kind of put a chuckle in your heart, and I'd share a joke. And so I really thrive on that, just putting a smile on people's faces and telling a joke or saying something funny. I mean, everybody can say something funny or even a one-liner. I sort of take it to the other degree. When somebody opens the door for me, and assuming it's a younger person, I'll say, "Is your mother still alive?" And most times they say yes. Well, I say to them, well, tell them she did a good job. So he smiles, and then he goes and tells his mother, and his mother smiles. And if it's a person that's older than me, then I'll say, is that age before beauty? Again, make them smile. So you never know how that little thing that you do that makes a person's smile may be that thing that was really what they needed that day. Because I've heard of stories where people were going to end their life, and it was just that one trigger, that one thing that changed it all around. So I really thrive on making people happy because we all need a little bit of happiness in our lives. You know, we live in such a tumultuous world, and just really start learning to appreciate things that you have that people always forget about. We never know what our strengths are or what kind of impact we have on another. So write yourself a thank you note for the good things that you have done for yourself and for other people, and you will be amazed. Send a card to a stranger, offer to buy flowers, offer to take somebody's dog for a walk. That makes people happy, and it really, think, oh, somebody really still cares about me. There's just little things you can do. Get people to write a note for you saying what they like about you. Like, don't be shy and reciprocate, do the same thing. What makes you happy about me, or vice versa? Like, because we all have strengths. And then with your children, get them to do things that they enjoy, not social media stuff, not on the phone, but whatever their talents or their skills are, really promote it. You know, we have this concept that every kid should go to university and get a degree. So what? What if you want to be an artist? What if you want to be a sports person? Like, really encourage your children to do things that make them happy. But like, the big stress has been, do things as a family, because then your kids will have those memories when they grow up that we did things with our families, and it really makes a big difference. And so, just in closing, I'd just like to say one more thing. A 4-year-old boy goes up to his dad and says, "Dad, I know who I'm going to marry. So who's the lucky girl? It's Grandma. She loves me. She's a great cook, and she's an awesome storyteller." "Well, there's a bit of a problem, son." "What's that, Dad?" "You can't marry my mother." "Why not? You married mine."
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. When I go for walks, I try to see how many people I can say hi to or get to wave to me. If they're looking at me from their car, I'll wave to them, and that's one of my little games. So we learned about living healthy through Ayurvedic. We need to eat together as a family, or even inviting friends, right? Meditating is good, and be happy. So enjoy your day. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to our panelists for their input. Wonderful getting to know each of you more. And thank you.